Look at that.
There are extra chairs if someone wants.
I haven't noticed some chairs like in Philly. It's still very extended.
Oh yeah.
Switch. You want to switch?
Which one? Okay, forward. Okay. High five, bro. Give me a high five. Okay, are we live? Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وصلى اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Okay, so we're going to start with a warm-up. So I want everyone to take both hands up high, up in the air. There we go. You're not in trouble. Don't worry. We're relaxing. Good. We're going to make two good-looking C's. So one for conviction and connection, the other one for commitment, right? I want you to combine those two C's together, extend the bottom, and what do we get? Anyone? Come on. What do you have? A heart, yes. What does heart signify? Huh? Love, yes. Good. I hear some life. Okay. Sure, definitely. All good answers. So everything around us in creation signifies something, right? So this is symbolic representation of love. We're going to jump into the subject by asking a very simple question. It shouldn't take you more than 5 seconds. I request from you all to be honest with yourself. So if you're thinking of Philly cheesesteak, say that out. If you're thinking of, oh, weekend getaway in Hawaii, say that out. If you're thinking about what to eat for iftar, say that out, okay? So that's the drill. Cool? Alrighty. So the question is, what do you love and why? I'll give you 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time's up. We'll take a couple of share outs, but first model how to say that. So what do I love and why? So I love this gentleman sitting with the glasses because he's awesome, right? So someone else, come on, let's share out. It shouldn't take you more than 5 seconds. Raise your hand, just go for it with whatever automatically you're feeling. I mean, don't you have kids? Don't you have spouses? Just say out whatever. Wow.
I love my wife there.
Okay, that's great. So here's the thing. You have to raise your hand, but you have to make sure you specify. You love your wife. Why? Because a characteristic, quality or something, right?
If he doesn't say that, he's going to be in trouble.
There are so many reasons. She makes me feel more confident, more comfortable.
Okay, thank you. She makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure that it makes you feel that you love your wife because she's present here.
That's another.
All right. Okay. Yeah, so something to reflect on. Let's take a couple of more. Come on, don't be shy. Yes, brother for us. Go for it.
Water.
Huh?
Water.
You love water because?
I'm so thirsty right now.
Fair enough.
It's beautiful. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, it satiates you. It's beautiful. Okay, good. A couple of more. Come on, ladies in the back, say out. What do you love and why? I know we were talking about things we love. We were carrying it, when we were while driving. Oh God. Yes.
I love myself.
Why?
Because of me, I realize where I belong to and make sense for my existence.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, session over. Wow, that was beautiful, actually. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so I'm sure you may have a lot of things that you love. The list keeps going, never ending. If you don't want to share out, no, that's fine. We respect that. But the whole idea or point is that we have this feeling of, love. Like we experience love, right? We want to be loved. We like to receive love as well, and we love things. So it's like a never-ending journey. And we experience different events in our lives. So this feeling of love is also expressed through our wordings, right? So whatever inner state you're feeling within yourself, you just say out. So like, oh, yeah, I'll talk to you later. Bye, love you too. Or yeah, I love you. Or if someone wants to give you a bouquet of flower, it signifies, oh, I love you, I appreciate you, right? It's something, right? Signifies something. So we want to be appreciated. We're so in need. It's amazing, really, like in need to experience this love. And it's all around us. So with that, I need a volunteer, and please raise your hand to read this up. So anyone? Come on, guys, we have to participate here. Yeah, like really raise your hand. Don't be shy, like, go ahead, yes.
I am a 100% needy individual. I am in need to love. I am in need to be loved. I need to be happy forever. I do not want to die. I want to stay youthful, and I wish all that for my loved ones. There is no end in all my wants and desires.
Thank you for a nice reading. So really, what am I? Like we can't even define it in a nutshell. I mean, it just keeps adding, like we are in need of so many things. My favorite one is that I need to be happy forever. All of you guys as well, it resonates with everybody, right? We are in need of eternal happiness. And early on, Brother Ali mentioned about, what did he say? The happiest man is the one that does not feel lonely, right? So we have this innate desire, right? So really, what makes me happy, right? Receiving this object, oh, I love it. Is it really, are we reciprocating the love amongst each other? No, so this is something to think about. Let me see, should I move on to the next slide? And ideally, when I say that we all want to be eternally happy, and the reality of life is that, we all have our ups and downs, right? Right? I see people nodding, right? Where sometimes you're happy, sometimes you feel less happy, sometimes you're angry, sometimes you feel betrayed, you experience injustice. So these feelings kind of fluctuate. So it's like a zigzag graph. But as long as we are on the way to growth, as in we're learning from our experiences, right? So your graph can be zigzag, but as long as it's leading you towards an ultimate or meaningful purpose, then that's how we are. We experience several emotions, feelings sometimes. So just some practical examples. I'm sure you all can relate it to whatever you experience. So like whenever you're like dropping off someone at the airport, like I personally don't love the departure side because it's really, it's painful to just say goodbye, right, to your loved ones. I like the arrival section, right? It makes you happy, joyful, you love that. Or some of you as parents, it must be very difficult when the first time you dropped off your kids to school, you're like, oh my God, I feel separated, from my little one. Or the first time most of us went to school away, you're like, oh man, I miss home, whatever, right? So you feel like, so you have all these emotions, and we experience that. So sometimes we do experience a lack of it, the lack of love or lack of mercy or anything, but the need is still there. Like as human beings, we are really needy, like of everything. We want everything to be meaningful, perfect, just want to be happy, right? So that's us. Okay. So far, so good? If you don't want to say good, thank you for nodding. I mean, really, expressing, you don't have to say yeah, you can just say yeah, go for it, right? So this is how we express as human beings, right? Language is just something, we can speak sign language, whatever, but that's how we are. Okay, good. All right, raise your hand. How many times do you feel that you need help? I'll raise both hands because it's like most of the time, all the time, even right now, I feel I need help. Yeah. I'm always in need of help. I need guidance. Hello. Everything that I interact with, it goes. It's like, water. Can you catch water? No. Can you hold on to like raindrops? You're like, oh, excellent. Look at that. It's, brilliant. It's sparkling, but then it, evaporates, right? So that's how our moments are. They come and go. Yesterday's event, whatever it was, beautiful dinner and all that, it's all gone. It's buried somewhere, in the grave of the stomach, and from there, it went wherever it's supposed to go. And then you say, wait a minute, moment comes, moment go, like, what's going on here? Like, I need guidance. How do I utilize myself in a meaningful way? How do I utilize this endless sense of love that I have for events, objects? Like, how can I make use of them in a way that serves its purpose, serves where I end up loving myself, right? Where that can help me connect to a more meaningful journey or goal. And for those of you who are honest with both hands, thank you. This realization of needing guidance, I need help, is the start of all things good. It's like Bismillah, right? In the name of God is the start of all things good. Or in the name of love is the start of all things good. There's actually a song, right? In the name of love, right? Okay, anyways. Okay, so realizing that that's the start of all thing good. I need guidance. How do I utilize myself? Because I have endless feelings. How can I make use of them in a meaningful way? Yes, thank you. Somebody gives me flower, but then the person eventually dies. I will die. The flower 2 days later withers away. How can I utilize my feelings and emotions in a way that satisfy me permanently? Because, to be honest, we want to solve our problems, right? We need solutions to our problems. And usually what is out there, what society offers us is, at least, from my experience, like really temporary solution to our problem. Yeah, sign up for this philosophy of life course for a year, right? You'll be happy, like for a long time. But after like 6 months or so, it dissipates. Oh, sign up for this, right? A couple of months, it goes away. So really, there's really not something out there like an all-encompassing package that's really catering or targeting all aspects of my beings, because I'm more than my consciousness, I'm more than my emotions, human qualities, and so on and so forth. So again, going back to this whole introspection of really what am I, what am I to do here, right, comes into play. So far, so good? Yeah, good. All right, excellent. Alhamdulillah, yes. So when you're like desperate, you're in need of help, it's not the following comes to your aid. It's not that you're standing on top of a mountain and right, this gets stuck. I mean, metaphorically speaking, yes, but it's a short verse, but man, does it carry lots of meaning and messages. So I love not, yes. I mean, love, yeah, definitely have this feeling. Love not those that sets. That is really talking to me, the human being, our human nature. That's how we are. Everything is setting, right? This morning is gone. The sun is setting, right? I cannot love anything that's setting, that's in motion. So that's also, again, good news. Okay, so this is talking to me. It's telling me exactly, it resonates with my state of being. I love not those that sets. And so the question then becomes, what am I supposed to love then, right? Definitely anything transient, right? I cannot hold on to it. It comes and goes. It dissipates. Youth is gone. I really miss it. Really miss it. So I was just wondering, like, really, how can we make our moments very meaningful and go on in the journey, like with the graph of progression, right? And also try to avoid the zigzag, because it's really how I deal with these kind of feelings that will help me make connection and then a commitment with my true object of love. So just 3 important bullet points that were imparted from this verse is, again, if I get the object, then will I be happy? Most of us are students, young professionals, parents. I mean, like, we come up from all walks of life that we cannot even define what do you do, right? I mean, so really, if I get this, if I get the next gig, the next project, whatever it is, right? Will I be, or if I get, those shoes, oh my God, I've been wanting those forever, right? So will I be happy? And then what will make me happy? So I want to make sure that we have the following 3 questions, or you can just pick any one, right? I personally like the first one and the last one, right? Like, have this in the back end of your mind as we go along this journey of reasoning logically, right? In terms of making our interactions a meaningful one here. Good? Yeah. Okay. And then more verses talking about love. Hashtag love. Wow. Verses talking about love. Sign me up, right? Bring it on. So the way this one is divided, it's in 3 parts. If you love God. So again, we said, what is God, right? So just put a parenthesis. If you love blank, right? Follow me. Blank will love you. Ooh, that sounds good news, right? Follow something, and then that love will be reciprocated, right? That's exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to specifically focus on if you love God part, right? So what does this tell us, really, that can somebody read the first bullet point? So I know that we're awake, Raise your hand. Go ahead.
Man's ultimate aim is to receive, parentheses, God's love.
Exactly. I was like, wow. When I read that, I'm like, interesting. It's walking me through that's, what I am. My ultimate aim is to receive God's love. So again, question mark, what am I loving, right? So, yes?
Why put God in parentheses?
Because, I can just say, oh, I love John. But without qualifying who John is, John doesn't mean anything to me, right? So let's say Bob, the architect of this building. I say, hey, I love Bob, right? Because look at that, he made this amazing place, but who's Bob? So without saying, oh, Bob, the all-knowledgeable one, or Bob, the all-beauteous one who designed all that, right? So that would then qualify God. Or also, at first glance, when you look at something, I don't know, you're like, oh, cool, pretty object, right? If you love this, I love this, right? Follow me, God will love you. Okay, so what's going on? So then the whole questioning starts, right? You're like, okay, follow who, what, So that's how we're going to break it down. But inshallah, as we progress along, these interesting brothers will talk about it. Okay, second bullet point. Someone from the back, come on, let's read up the bullet point. Yes, please, go for it.
Man was created with an infinite love for the universe's creator.
Thank you. I just love that, voice full of energy. Thank you. So even this part, man was created with an infinite love for his creator, right? So what does it tell us? Oh, I have the capacity to love the source of my existence, right? Whatever's bringing things into existence, right? Because again, everything is transient here, right? They don't have the quality to give existence to anything. So then my question again is, am I developing my potentiality to receive love of the source of my existence? Because truly I fail. I attach or I put my love into objects, things, and events, and they depart, they leave you, ta-ta, bye-bye, whatever. And you're like, it's painful, right? So you really need solution to solve this kind of problem. And yeah, so if anyone's interested, that's the text that we were, that we extracted all this from. So I think, oh, there's more. Okay, so another verse. So I need somebody to read this one up. Someone from the right side, come on.
Reading
The verse, yeah?
the verse?
Yes.
Okay. Now has come to you a messenger from among yourself. It grieves him that you should perish. Ardently anxious he is over you. To the believers he is most kind
And merciful?
and merciful.
And merciful. Oh, yes. Again, we always make mistakes, right? Human error.
Is it and merciful? Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah. So now has come to you a messenger from among yourselves. It grieves him that you should perish. Ardently anxious is he over you. To the believers he is most kind and merciful.
Most kind and merciful. So again, at first glance, I read that. I was like, wow, this is good news. Somebody's there, who's going to help me out, because I really need a guide. I need a teacher, a mentor who's going to walk me through, my journey here. So I have someone who's concerned about my state of being in this universe. If this is the case, then I'm well taken care of, right? So I know a lot of us gave out, the brothers gave out the analogy of professor, students, right? They have their TAs, right? You can go for tutoring and so on and so forth. So that's the case. Hey, guess what? I'm well taken care of by the source of my existence. And so all I need to do now is listen to this someone who seems lovely. Really, like somebody's there to help you out, right? Like, hello, knock, knock. Help me out, right? And see if it makes sense to my being, and then cruise along with this someone on its highway. So obviously, somebody presents you with something, hi, here's something, but you'll have to do some investigation, like, okay, what do you have to present? Oh, let me check. If it makes sense to you, if it resonates, right? Then you're like, yeah, sign me up. I want to cruise along with you. So that's that. And that was the first part of this presentation. And what? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Try to be as lovely as she was.
That's impossible. Oh yeah, thank you. So to continue on, how Furry have presented the case in terms of that we need guidance in terms of, with all the things that we have, all the, our feelings and senses, like she mentioned about the need that we have, and, as individuals, as human beings, and the words that were shared in terms of, if you do love God, follow me, God will love you. So really, there is something about this, love of God that we need to have, right? Early on, I remember from Brother Ali's discussion, something that came to my understanding was, he made the case of being convinced. Conviction is not enough. That is only stage one. It is one thing. So everybody can claim to say that, there is a creator. But then that relationship has to be further nurtured. It has to be worked on. Just the conviction staying there does not, is not satisfactory to me, at least as a human being. Yeah, I'm convinced, but in terms of living my life, I just go on having that kind of conviction, but it's not really practical or internalized into my daily activities, into my daily routine, or in terms of the habits that I, have developed over the course of time. So definitely I need to look for an example who can show me how to, build that relationship, how to love God, and whatever we define as God, as the source of existence, or whoever it is that I'm trying to establish this relationship with. I'm assuming that we understand that, yes, there is this love that I want to maintain. I want to really build out on this relationship with the one who gives me existence, or the source of existence. So with that, over the course of time, for example, with the previous presentation was talking about the temptations and the wrong choices that we have. Yeah, in this world and in this civilization, we are definitely, picking up a lot of things. We are like magnets, and there's we get influenced. We listen to something, or see some advertisements, or we see some, there are some ideas that are flowing around. So those are things that we need, they influence us. They maybe, they divert our, worldview, or the way we think about things. So, that puts kind of like a rust into the way we are made, our true nature. And that rust has to be cleaned off with the, by following an example that we're looking for, how can I build and continue this love for my Lord or my Creator, the one who is, giving me all these qualities, these, the neediness that I'm given, as Faria was talking about, in terms of, I have these feelings that are, really going on in me, as at different stages of my life, especially, like at the maturity age, when everything just gets developed and, we are facing all those different, feelings and emotions and senses that are going through. So I need a way to, to know how to use them. Nobody really teaches, how to use your, those feelings that you are, and how to use all those, give you a proper way in terms of how to see the world and how to make, have a purposeful life and existence in this world. So in that sense, we definitely need like an exemplary guide that should come to us. So what do I need to look for? So that was something that we discussed among ourselves, and we were saying, okay, so this guide that I'm looking for, what should I look for? What must be like, what kind of teacher? As a kid, we always have role models. Maybe we may be admiring, like a particular, some football player, sports guy, or maybe some public speaker. But there's always some, something we look up to in terms of, maybe in my career-wise, I saw somebody with a particular career, and I started, seeing that, okay, this is, this becomes my particular role model. But in terms of my existence, in terms of my feelings, and all those things within me that are, wanting to know, hey, can you tell me, how do I make use of this? I don't want to go exceed in my, like, let's say in some particular quality, in some particular emotion, or let's say in anger, for example. I need to know what the limitation is. In love, I need to know what the purpose of that is. How do I use that particular feeling? So I'm looking for like a teacher, who is really knows what all these qualities that a human being, his neediness, what they are meant for. So somebody who, is aware that they are a created being, and they need, they must be guided from the way that their source of existence wants them to be. So not like by somebody else in the universe that, this is how you want to be, but the one who gives you existence, how this being wants you to be and live your life. How should that work? So a teacher who, is aware by and himself is guided by this Lord of the universe, right? That would be my first, choice in terms of who can explain to me, like, how to use myself, my being. So it's being guided by the Lord of the universe, and that's, somebody who can show me like this love that, I know that I'm convinced that there's a Lord, but then how can I make it more practical in my life? What was the second C? The connection, right? So how do I build that connection, right? In terms of like the internet connection, that was a good example. So basically build on that relationship of connecting my being to my Lord. And yeah, so somebody, like I have a lot of concerns as a human being, like, well, what's going to happen to me after, like I'm aging, and then after a certain time I see people, like different friends that are no longer here, and some people, who are, going through different situations. So, somebody who can address all these concerns, who tells me, your existence, your life is, is purposeful, is meant for something. So somebody who can, bring me the good news that, you are a valuable being in your existence. You are given a purposeful existence. Those are the kind of teachings that, as a human being, I have all those questions and I need answers to. So there is a guide who can help me, navigate through all those questions and direct those questions in terms of seeing what the reality of those, of this situation is, and really understands me as a human being. And that's very important also. I cannot ask a tree to tell me, hey, why do I exist? Because the tree and I don't talk the same language. Although we communicate with, I can communicate with the tree. Yeah, you are you are an existent being, but how do you, I need answers to my questions. And poor tree says, I can only talk according to my, language of disposition. The way I am created, that's my only language. Right? So definitely, we need a messenger or a prophet or a teacher that is in human form, and that tells me exactly, addresses me what my purpose is, and basically the message should make sense to my being, where my human side, my human question is satisfied, and it should not contradict my human qualities. Okay. Okay, so this is a verse that we can look into. Basically, now that we know that we need a teacher in a human form, so this verse was pretty interesting. It says, "Indeed, there has come unto you, O mankind, an apostle from among yourselves." So among yourselves. "Heavily weighs upon him the thought that you might suffer," in parentheses, "in the life to come. And full of concern for you is he, and full of compassion and mercy towards the believers." This is from the Quran, chapter 9, verse 128. This is the same one you were presenting also.
Oh, is it? I didn't realize it.
Oh,
Maybe different.
The wordings are different.
Wordings are
different
different.
commentators, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, that's interesting.
But the focus, what we are trying to look into this, all the verses are pretty heavily loaded, but we're focusing in terms of our topic, in terms of seeing the prophetic side of things and the prophetic practices. So I'm just seeing that, again, the apostle or the teacher who is going to guide me must be from among fellow human beings, must be from among ourselves, because that's the language I can understand. This is the, a human being is the one who can understand, who goes through the same things I go through, and I can relate myself to speaking, talking, walking, going through emotions and all these human concerns kind of person. So that's what, as a humans, I need human teachers. And the other thing I said, and we have the most sincere, compassionate teacher model, because, as a human being, whoever gives me existence should not leave me alone to my, on my own discovery in terms of finding out what the meaning is without appointing a teacher. It is really important for a human being to have a teacher. I know people who say they're self-learned people, but even self-learning, you are going through certain books, and then you're learning and you're reading them. You're looking at the works of other scholars or other, writers who have written it. So even self-learning, there's no such thing. There's the need for a teacher for a human being. And then again, this teacher must not be taken lightly. I think it's very important for me, at least, that, we say everything, for example, gives me meaning. For example, the tree gives me, can act like a messenger. Or, for example, an analogy used is a postman comes and he gives me the letter. But then he says, "Hey, here's your letter, bye, see ya." He just leaves. So the apostle or the messenger that I'm looking for should not be like the postman, because that I don't interact with anymore or I don't have in my life anymore. This is something that must be, really with me in my life, that for, in my daily routines, whatever I'm doing, in the little, how I practice and live my life, there must be this sense of prophethood or the teacher or guidance, somebody who can show me, this is the proper way of being a human being. So really, not to be taken lightly in terms of the teachings is very, very crucial to me as a human being. Do you want to make a comment?
No, you're great.
So another verse.
Can I read?
Sure, Faria, go ahead.
Yet they say, what sort of apostle is this man who eats food like all other mortals and goes about in the marketplaces? Why has not an angel visibly been sent down onto him to act as a warner together with him?
Yeah, Quran chapter 25, verse 7. I mean, this puts also the, clarification in terms of the messenger is somebody who eats food and is also a mortal being, just like you and me, everybody here. So in that sense, he's also living a life just like I am living in my life in my civilization. So this prophet also lived his life in his civilization, in his time period. So he performs certain actions according to his time period. So the physical actions that he performed in his time period are historical actions. They are according to the times and conditions of his time. But the meaning behind whatever his message is, his teaching is universal. So that is what I have to bring to my condition in my day and age. For example, let's say the prophet is, he's riding a camel in his time period, right? So that's something that was common in that. But that is an action in terms of his transportation. He's living his life. And for example, I take the train in my example. But so both of us are in our conditions of life, we are using transportation. But in prophets, teaching is that in the action of riding the camel, he is seeing, the mercy of, the existence of the camel, the grace of his Lord in terms of how he's being transported. So that teaching is a universal teaching. Although the action stays in the historical side, but the teaching or the meaning behind, the way the prophetic, what a prophet stands for is a universal thing. So that teaching applies to something that is for all times. There is no space and time restriction in terms of that meaning. So I have to see how, the prophet, how he lives his life. And I don't really mean like some of the biographies that mention that. No, as a prophet of God. Like he is instructed by his source of existence. How is he living his life? Because he is expected to live his life by following the will of his Creator. And that puts an example in my case that I can relate to that and follow his practice easily.
Let's ask someone from the audience to read that, so making sure everybody's awake, right?
Yes, please, Freya, help us.
Yes,
please.
come on. Don't make me pick on you guys. That's the last thing I want to do. Pick on people. Be nice. Show some love. Raise your hand and volunteer, especially if we haven't heard your voice. It's good to, yes, go ahead.
Those who follow the last apostle, the unlettered prophet, whom they shall find described in the Torah
that is with them, and later on in the gospel, the prophet who will enjoin upon them the doing of what is right and forbid them the doing of what is wrong, and make lawful to them the good things of life and forbid them the bad things, and lift from them their burdens and the shackles that were upon them aforetime. Those therefore who shall believe in him and honor him and succor him and follow the light that has been bestowed from on high through him, it is they that shall attain to a happy state.
Well, that was a very long text. Thank you for reading. So we have to be cognizant when we thank someone. So we are thankful to the source of your existence for employing you to read such a long text. So that's the kind of consciousness we are journeying towards, inshallah. So,
Thank you, everyone.
oh, God.
No, I'm studying the verse along with everybody here also. So going back to in terms of following these simple practices and actions of the Prophet, there's a lot in this verse again, but that we can discuss in terms. But again, the point I want to highlight here is about a teacher who is showing you the way in terms of says doing the good things and the bad things. So it's not really about like everybody tells us about the good and bad things. I'm forgetting a word. Maybe you can help me. Huh?
Moral values.
Yeah, so like the moral and humanitarian values. So that is all already within us, right? So that is part of it, but it's not the duty of this messenger or the teacher to tell me, how to live morally in terms of my existence. And
So is it like Dr. O's suggesting us to eat this and not eating that? This is good for your health.
right, exactly. That's a good example. It is not something like that, right? Because that's, because Dr. Oz can, like in your example, can tell us that, right? But
Not stealing would be another example, right?
right. So the Prophet, in terms of telling you what right is basically, again, going back to what he stands for. He's establishing the connection for you with your source of existence, with your Lord. So when that connection is established, right, and then you are committed to that, again, Brother Ali's morning discussion, you're committed to that action, that yes, this is a grace from your Lord, and this gracefulness is what you love in your being. So this is something that you appreciate, and you know that this quality is not existing or being given by anything that is created. It comes from the one who has set all the stage and the whole universe. So that's how, with the connection, is how that a conscious connection, like humanly satisfying conscious, becomes a good action. And then there is, and also like the burdens and the shackles, like, again, all my worries and concerns, these are some, so the Dr. Oz or somebody else can give me some temporary kind of remedies in terms of how to cope with some of my concerns, but for my human concerns, some of the pillars of belief, as Yusuf and Abdul Rahman were presenting, for that, I don't think Dr. Oz has an answer or for those kind of things. So those burdens and shackles are pretty heavy. For example, like one of the contemplations of the Prophet is, sometimes he would think about his, the transience of this world, and he would see, like, what is the meaning behind it. He would think about, the death of people, his loved ones, and he knows, everybody will die, including myself, and so that becomes a really heavy kind of burden if we really think that there is no recourse or there's nothing after this world. So those kind of burdens, like the human concerns, are the ones that the Prophet is expected to guide me on in terms of, why are you given life? Why are you given these senses? Why are you given these feelings? They're not just for, if you die at the end and feelings and senses die with you. What's the point of being given all those things? Right? So all those feelings you have, and if you at the end, it's a dead end, nothing happens. So why even, whoever gives them to me, why would they give that to me? It's a valid concern for me. Yes, please.
So yeah, basically we're not looking for like band-aids, right? Temporary solutions. Like it's serious matter, like to contemplate on the reality of this existence, right? So I know like this generation now it's all about YOLO, you'll only live once, right? No, okay, maybe in this type of existence, yes, but like there's meaning behind this, right? So that's where we need kind of like a guidance, right? Somebody to walk us through in terms of making sense of me realizing this and how do I go on, like living here? Otherwise, it's gonna be torture without any guidance. I'm here from birth until death, and that's it. No, I mean, things become purposeless then, right? One achievement after the other, keep accumulating things, but for what? Like really? At the end, what is all this good for, right? So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Yeah, so this says not following the practices of the Prophet. Now, what does that entail? So the verse, maybe I can read this one. This is because they opposed Allah or God and His Messenger, and whoever opposes Allah, God, then indeed Allah is severe in penalty. This is from the Quran, chapter 59, verse 4. So there are like many examples that in terms of the scripture, in terms of the, what happens if one does not follow, the teachings or the practice of, their teacher, the messenger, or the prophet. So really, what happens is that going back to, the relationship that we are trying to establish with our source of existence, it's like we disconnect from that, by, our habits continue going on in terms of, the way we just, influenced by the civilization and the society, and we lose track. We don't have the, the consciousness, the awareness, or how to divert or direct all these qualities and feelings that we have into, for the purpose that they are given for, in terms of like recognizing and really getting to know and appreciate who this creator is or the source of our existence. And again, if not following is another thing, is that we no longer adhere, or we no longer, since we no longer have that connection with our source of existence, we are just using our free will in the way, without any proper guidance on how the free will has to be used. It's just on, going with the flow in terms of the wrong ideas. And I liken it to like the example of a warranty on a gadget. When the warranty or the connection is no longer available, whatever the device you have is, who knows what can happen, right? We don't know exactly with the expired warranty. There's no guarantee anymore for anything. But with the continuous warranty, like with this connection that we have, I also like the example of the internet, like that connection, internet connection. As long as we are connected with the source of our existence, that's how I'm able to follow and adhere to the, what my source of existence wants of me. His will, I'm able to follow. So in my small little practices, which I think Berkan will go over into, like every daily routine and habits, how I can make, make that connection, establish that, and then, and realize, that connected with my Lord and see, yeah, this is how my state of being is what He wants me to be. This is how my, the source of existence wants a human being to be in terms of having this, connection and, yeah. Well.
Can I add something? I just have strong opinion about this kind of ayah. And I like how you explained it, because the classical reading of it is just makes me very angry, because someone is bullying me into believing. Saying if you don't believe, and you are in severe penalty. And I think the one that at least makes sense to me is the reading that Abdurrahman and Yusuf were saying about being not at peace in your current life is the penalty.
Correct.
It's not just imagining some fire and wood and hell.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, it's not, basically we are hurting our own self. We are creating our own fire at this moment right now. Yes, so that's a very important point. Thank you for bringing that up. Like that severe punishment is not like, somebody is angry or, really upset that, the way Abdul Rahman and Yusuf presented divine, everything is presented to you is how we direct our free will, how we use it, and how, all these tools and qualities and senses that we have, how are we making use of them? That is, making the right choices. That is how the connection is established. Again, if we cut ourselves off, like from a power plant, for example, central power plant, and then your house, you say, I don't want the electricity. You cut yourself off, you won't get the electricity. Who's suffering? You yourself are suffering because you're not getting the power from that power plant. So thank you for bringing that up.
Power plant doesn't mind.
Yeah. The power plant
station doesn't mind
all,
you cut off your...
Right, it's always there. It says you don't want it, so you're cutting yourself off. So the penalty, the suffering is from your own self.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that should be it for me. Thank you.
Feria and Asim covered the fun part, so I'm here to talk about how to trim your beard, how to drink water, how to sleep, and so on. But I see some, actually, like many sleepy faces, like from here we can see. So I will give you like 3 seconds to shake yourself, take a deep breath, make istighfar.
There's one guy who's not sleeping.
Oh. So yeah, up to this point we talked about the guidance. We need guidance, and we are given guidance. We are given guidance in a human form as a prophet. So that's part we covered. And look, there are many things to be said about the guidance and the prophet, but in this part that I'm going to specifically talk about just little actions or daily routines or practices of the prophet. So do not expect everything to be covered. I'm only talking about a very tiny aspect of it. Oh, so this is another verse in Quran which talks about similar things that Asim and Feria pointed out. Some phrases are exactly the same, the others are different. So again, like I won't be able to cover the entire verses to interpret the verse. I will only pick some tiny parts from the verses which would be related to our context. And here, again, we see a mention of a prophet or a messenger, a message bearer, who is in a human form and actually eating food, just like other human beings, and walking in the marketplace. Like he's part of the daily life. So it's just an ordinary person from this aspect. And as the Feria and Asim touched upon, I guess this is really important in our case because as human beings, we need such models. Like there's a very relevant verse in Quran which says if it was angels walking on the earth, we would send angels as messengers. So again, this verse could be taken in many different ways. We can discuss what angel is and not. But in our context, the way I see, my Creator is telling me that, Birkan, I know what you are. I know what you need. And this is my answer. My answer is a perfect match to your needs. And in this case, when we need a guidance, when we need a prophet is the human form. Just like any other human being, he's eating food, he's walking in the marketplace. Why? Because I'm also eating food. And I need to know, I need to make sense of my eating food. And a tree, as Asim was saying, cannot tell me this, how to make sense of eating food, or how to eat the food, quote unquote, right way. So that's the reason, like, it's really important that the guidance is coming from human form. And from a practical point of view, actually, like, as a humans, this is the first way we interact with the message. So I see a person, the first thing I look, the way they behave. Like she behave or he behave. If the person is an arrogant one, for instance, I wouldn't expect a rightful message from them. If he's getting angry all the time, I would know that there is something wrong with him. So the extent that I benefit from him or her would be limited because of the way he lives or she lives his life. So the way the messenger, the guidance, or the guide manifests his message that he receives in the practical life is my first encounter with the message. And this is what we see also in the historical narrations, that the people were respecting prophet even before the message. Or the way they were, being, they trying to understand the message was through his actions and behaviors. So this part, I guess, really important for us. The second part, Creator says we cause the human beings, or you, to be a means of testing one another. So again, this can be taken different ways. I'm sure they all will be, has truths somehow. But in our context, the way I take it as, yes, maybe I don't have access to this prophet that we're talking about as a human being. He lived 1400s or centuries ago. And I don't have the access to his physical beings. But at the same time, I want to benefit from his physical beings, or let's say the way he were manifesting his belief into actions. I want to benefit from that. And the Creator says, do you know what? Actually, we make the other human beings, like everyone, a test for you. I taking the test as a means to reach what is wrong and what is right. So I can benefit from the students of the prophet, or the students of the prophet, just like I'm benefiting from the scholars. Because every scholar would be a test for me so that I will know what is right and what is wrong.
A means of learning.
Exactly. So in that sense, I can take the prophethood as a living tree. A living tree meaning, it's not the case that he lived and died. But what he initiated, what he started, or maybe what he continued, was still in my time living. That has some fruits that I can benefit from him, or his message, and even his actions. The final point with this verse, which for me is very powerful and very relevant to our topic, is that the verse is completed or finished by saying that your sustainer is truly all-seeing. So there is nothing out of his sight. Right? From my perspective, how I understand this, whatever I do, even if it is a tiny action, even if it is the most ordinary thing, even if it is the most minute or, I don't know, the simple thing, it is a means for me to get connected with my Creator. Because He's the all-seeing. So there is nothing out of His sight. There is nothing that cannot make me connected with my Creator. And going back to the beginning, what Feria was saying, this is what I want. I want to be loved. I want to love. I want to be loved. And I want to be constantly in the presence of my loving one. So, and this verse, by saying that your sustainer is truly all-seeing, or maybe many other verses ending like your sustainer or your Lord is the all-powerful, all-seeing, all-encompassing. Telling me the same thing, like your entire life, every actions of yours is a means to connect with Him. There is no such thing as, okay, this is my religious life where I connect to my Creator, and this is my practical life that I do whatever I do. There is no such thing. He's not partially seeing. He is all seeing. And again, going back to beginning, like this was my aim already. I want to be in the presence of my object of love. And how I do that? By taking my, first of all, the actions and the practices, daily routines, as a serious one. Like saying that they all have a meaning. They all has to have some meanings. And then our topic, the following the practices of the prophet. Then this following the practices of the prophet, the daily actions, the daily routines, or the minute actions of the prophet, becomes a means to connect me with my Creator. Because by recalling that every actions I do has a meaning, and trying to understand the meaning, trying to ask my model, the human model, prophet, what is behind all these actions, I recall that this prophet was sent from my Creator. So the message he carries was sent through my Creator. So the prophet is kind of maybe like a means, a pathway to the presence of my Creator. So if anyone, just to wake you up, can read the passage, I guess it will be better. Azman, would you like to read the passage? I like picking up people. Okay. No? Any volunteer, please? Just tiny. You want to read this one?
I would volunteer. From ordinary to divine, to follow the practices recalls the noble messenger upon whom be blessings and peace directly, and such recollection is transformed into recollection of the divine presence. The moment that they are observed in even the least significant dealings in the conduct of eating, drinking, or sleeping, such habitual natural acts become meritorious acts of worship in compliance with the Sharia. For the person thinks of following God's messenger, upon whom be peace, and conceives of his actions as conduct of the Sharia. Then he recalls that the messenger, upon whom be peace, brought the Sharia, and then his heart turns to Almighty God, the true lawgiver, and he gains a sort of awareness of the divine presence and a sense of worship.
Thank you. And I guess the last part that the highlighted, that he gains a sort of awareness of the divine presence and a sense of worship. That's my aim already. Like, I want to be in the presence of my object of love. And what this passage tells me, that even with my the minute actions, least significant dealings like eating, drinking, if I take the question, if I have the question of, I'm drinking, yes, the thing is provided to me. So it's not something ordinary. I have to know how to approach it because I'm taking it seriously. I have to know how to approach it. Even having this sense that I need to know or I want to know brings your mind to the messenger, the message, the guidance. And from guidance, you reach the guide, the one who guides you, the sustainer. So I guess what we are trying to say that there's no such thing as ordinary. Even the ordinary things can become a means of worship. And with the worship, again, what we mean is the awareness of the divine presence. Any comments, questions so far? Please don't be shy. And when we have this understanding, like these actions, what we do, they're not anymore just do's and don'ts. They're not just rules that we have to follow. It's a source of pleasure for us. Just like, the mother teaching his son to cook. She tells him how to do things, what to do, in what order, and so on. But for him, they're not just, the boring laws to follow. Because by following them, he feels the presence of his mother. He feels the love of his mother. So from these minute actions that he does, of course the analogy is not perfectly good, he reaches the presence of his mother, the love of his mother. And I guess there is no end to this, like when we say even the least significant. So this is a narration from the prophet. I apologize for the content, but I guess it's a good example. So according to narration, one unbeliever, like of this time, whatever it means, comes to a companion of the prophet and says, "Oh, I heard," probably trying to mock, "that I see that your friend even teaches you, how to behave in the restroom." And the companion was not offended at all. He was saying, "Oh, yes, that's true. He tells us how to do it, what to do it, and so on, all the details, just in the restroom." Why? Because he was aware, the companion was aware that there is no such thing which separates you from the source of existence, which separates you from the love of your Creator, the Lord, Sustainer. Even the least significant, this is the least significant I could find, even the least significant actions is a means of worship or awareness of the presence of your Creator. So, of course, that brings to some questions into mind. We have, once we start talking about the actions, things, have a possibility to become a little bit superficial. And then, how should we treat our actions, or how we should even discuss about the actions? So this is another narration. So why I love this narration, because when you read the book of Bukhari, which is the compiler of these narrations, in his book he has a structure. Like he talks about first the revelation, how it started, and then some companions. So each part has a, let's say, context, or has a theme. Yes, thank you. Has a theme. But at the very beginning of the book, out of nowhere, he starts with this narration. This narration is not part of the theme, definitely. But he says the actions are according to intentions. This is a narration from the prophet. So the prophet is speaking. Actions are according to intentions. Everyone will get what was intended. So we shouldn't forget that when we're talking about the actions, what makes them valuable from one aspect is the intentions. How you feel them, with what intentions you do them. So for instance, with the previous passage that we read, the intention was reaching the presence of the Creator. And that's what makes drinking water as a means of worship. So you start with intention. You have to feel your actions with the intentions. But then on the other hand, you also need to migrate. So you cannot just have the intention. You have to put it into action. You have to take the step. You have to migrate. Without migration, there is no intention. Like your intention is just empty talking or empty thinking. So there is this relationship between this intention and the action. So we see some similar relationship between belief and actions. For instance, just prayers. Like we have these discussions, whether it's, it start with belief or prayers or whatever. So I guess the distinction is already wrong. But we sometimes take, for instance, the prayers, the actions, as expression of my belief. Meaning, which is good, like there's nothing wrong with that. But we may go to the one extreme, saying that, first I have to establish my belief to the extent that I will have no, empty slot in my belief, and then I start putting into actions. In this example, praise is just one example. It can be anything. But on the other hand, this is, to me at least, the more correct one, is your actions or prayers are also means to attain belief. Just like the verse in Quran, the messenger was eating food and walking in the marketplace. So you're eating food and walking in the right marketplace with right intention and following the guidance can become a means to attain a better understanding of the creation, better understanding of the Creator, or maybe better awareness of the presence of your Creator. So I guess we can formulate it as acting is attending to a classroom. Your belief, your intentions, or current conclusions will shape your gain from the classroom, that's for sure. Like if you sleep in the classroom, for instance, that's the most you will gain from the classroom. Just a comfortable place to sleep. But if you listen your teacher, attending the classroom will become a means to reach to new conclusions, reach to a better awareness of the presence of your Creator. Any questions so far? Objections? Oh, really? So one example, I guess, is like when we talk about the actions, is learning a language. So nobody learns a language by just studying books, attending classes without any speaking, like just reading books, and then out of sudden you speak speaking the language. This is not the case. For human beings who eat and walk in the marketplace, this is not the case. The way we learn language, you study, you come to conclusion, and then you speak, and then you study more, and you speak more, you study more, you speak more. This is the way we learn the language. So speaking is not just outwardly manifestation of what you know about the language. It's a means to learn the language. By acting, by eating, for instance, you learn something about your Creator, the sustainer of this food. So I want to highlight this part, that whenever we talk about the actions, there's always a possibility that we become superficial, whatever it means. Or we can be accused to be superficial just because we're talking about little actions. But to me, the superficial is a biased word. Like it's already, like when you say superficial, you're already assuming that there is nothing more than what you have. If someone else talking about something more about what you have, you call it superficial. So one example, so let's assume two people looking at a lovely hummingbird, okay? One person is an artist. And this is a beautiful depiction of the hummingbird, right? So this is how he or she manifests or how she sees the creation, okay? The same thing. She looks at this hummingbird, and this is the outcome. This is myself. Intention is there. Like I really tried my best. Believe me, like for the wings, I tried 2 or 3 different versions to reach the best one, seriously. So intention is there, right? This is myself. So I say, okay, maybe it's not good enough. I talk about, the art. I say it is beautiful. And then I go further. I put some descriptions. I give some meanings. And I don't know. I explain things. But I guess the difference between the first one and the second one is so obvious. Like, yes. So yes, sometimes we don't want to be superficial by talking about the actions. But without talking about our practical actions, we may become that one, like myself. So I guess, anyway, the picture speaks better than me. So the last part is, again, when we talk about the actions or practices, we always talk about the innovations. We say innovations are bad. And why they are bad, at least in our context, the way we study it, because when I say that, how he treated people or how he spoke to other people, the prophet, my human model, it doesn't matter. It's only about the, what he was trying to do, or it was just the message. Then I have this, the feeling or desire inside me, this tendency telling me that, Birkan, you can make actions meaningful in your own way. You don't have to follow someone. Like you have this understanding, you have this power to make actions meaningful in your own way. Maybe he was treating people nicely, but you don't have to treat people nicely. You can just be the rush teacher, and maybe it is best for them. Right? Putting your, let's say, the power, your knowledge, your will into the equation. And I guess such a tendency is not, why such a tendency is bad? Because it's against my reality. Because I don't have knowledge, I don't have power, I don't have will to make things meaningful. I want to learn the meaning behind everything. That's the reason I need the guidance for, like, at the first place. I need someone to tell me what is the point of all this. While this is my reality, I take the opposite side and say, oh, no, I can make sense of things. I can explain what is behind everything. And this is what I understand from innovation. Forget about how he has done it. Just invent your way. Just like Feria was saying, YOLO. This is our invention. Like we're trying to make some sense of the reality, and my invention is you live only, you only live once? This is my invention. I'm trying to make sense of the reality from my perspective, without putting the creator and the message and the guidance into account.
Or another example of eating food, for example, we think the food is coming, the qualities of the food, the taste and the sense is coming from the food itself, that could be an innovation also. Rather than it's a blessing, it's a source, something that is specially prepared for me from my Lord. Again, tying it to that connection. That's what that small practice of eating should bring into my life. So the innovation part is, again, if I attribute it to the created things themselves. Right?
So in that sense, the innovation's bad because they hurt the relationship that I'm after with the loving one. It hurts the relationship between my sustainer and myself. And that's the end. So we have how many minutes? 10 minutes. Okay. Yeah, please.
So how did you get define innovation again?
How I define the innovation?
Yeah, what is the meaning, like definition of innovation?
So
in the context?
I haven't gave the definition. I gave the as Yusuf would say, the state that I am in when I'm having these innovations. And this is the state, like I can make actions meaningful in my own way. This is how I see the innovation.
How is it different? Like if I say that I can make action meaningful in my own way, if I say that, how is that like going against the teaching of the Prophet or like practice of the Prophet? So what is the difference between these two stands?
When you follow the practices of the Prophet, when you take him as a model, you realize that you don't have knowledge, power, or will to make such a decision that make things meaningful in your own way. You realize that the meaning comes from the Creator. The will to make things meaningful comes from the Creator.
So in the teaching of the Prophet or the practice of the Prophet, you rely on the source. But in the state of innovation, you rely on your own power.
Béexactly. And that was a great distinction.
Or is it really coming from yourself, or this action, because it is an innovation, it makes the action an innovation because you are relating to yourself?
Yes, that's true.
It means, this is my understanding, the prophetic teaching says, no, this action should relate you, connect you to the source of the source of the action. It means the one who gave existence to this action. So it is a relating side. If the relating side is disconnected, it falls on yourself, as Asim said actually. And Asim said it. Asim can repeat this, what you made the last comment on, what did Asim?
The example of eating the food,
yeah,
for example. So so when I'm eating food, for example, if I think that the taste or the pleasure is coming from the food itself, and that eating of, that action of eating that food becomes an innovation for me.
Is an innovation.
Is an innovation.
It didn't connect you.
Correct. There was no connection between the one who provided the food to me, or the one who gave existence to that pleasure, the taste of that food, the feeling that I get, the sensation, the fulfillment I get, is all must be or is. I have to see that it is provided by a source and cannot be coming from the food itself. I mean, the food has no ability to give existence to any of the satisfaction.
So is this aspect of the action makes this action as the way of following the prophetic teaching, because the prophet represents what?
The connection to your source of existence.
So if the prophet in our mind doesn't represent the fact that he is employed by your creator, your existence keeper, if it is not employed by him, his mission, if his mission is not to take me and connect myself, my life, to the source of my existence, then this is not the prophet then. It will be, I don't know, a kind man and hero,
Wise
somebody.
man.
So what makes this particular person a messenger? Because his actions, by definition, must contact me to the Creator. So when an ordinary man like me or Birkan, we are the same kind of people, ordinary people. So by following the exemplary way of life, in fact, it is not restricted to the action itself, but through the action, I connect myself to the Creator because I know that I am not following a wise man.
That's
I
a
am
great point.
following the messenger of the Creator of this action. That's what makes a messenger.
Just to connect this very important point about the fact that the Prophet takes what we usually perceive as horizontal and introduces the vertical dimension to us. There is this short poem from Ibn Ata'illah, a famous spiritual teacher from, I think, 13th century, that connects with this idea with the hadith you mentioned about migration.
Mhm.
May I say?
Sure, please.
So it says, travel not from creature to creature, otherwise you will be like a donkey at the mill. Round about he turns, his goal the same as his departure. Rather, go from creatures to the Creator. And I think this is an ayah, and that the final end is unto thy Lord. وَإِلَى تُرْجَعُ الْأُمُورُ, I think. Consider the Prophet's words, peace be upon him. Therefore, he whose flight is for God and his messenger, then his flight, his migration, is for God and his messenger. And he whose migration is for worldly gain or marriage with a woman, then his migration is for that which he flees to. So understand his words, peace be upon him, and reflect on this matter if you can.
Thank you.
So he sees in that migration hadith, migrating for the sake of God, as migrating from the creatures to the Creator, and not being stuck in, I did this, I did that, creature to creature. You're like a donkey at the mill going, your starting point and ending point is the same, from creatures to creatures. And what the Prophet teaches us is to connect this world, the created world, and see the dimension to the transcendent there.
I think it's also, like, to me, what's coming to mind is like having a strong point of support. So if I were just to make any actions just meaningful in my own way, I won't have, I will always fail. I will always have like a weak point of support, because anything from this universe or even relying on myself, I'm bound to fail. So what you shared helps one to, or even the Prophet is like a vehicle that helps me establish a solid point of support, right? Brings me about on a journey to establish this point of support. It's drop by drop, but essentially you have to put the first brick, and build on top of that to have a solid ground. Otherwise, a base without, that thing doesn't really seem solid, right? Like that's not brick or something else. It's like sand, building a sand castle, right? It's bound to fail, as opposed to having something, solid in the foundation. So, I just wanted to share that. How many minutes do we have? 3 minutes. Does anyone?
More questions?
So, does anyone have?
No, go ahead.
So I understand the point that you make conclusions about creation or existence to connect you, to always keep you connected to the source of existence, and that should guide your actions. But we were also mentioning in the previous discussion that we shouldn't be result-oriented. But my question is, how do you know that your action, like, you know, maybe through that approach, you're trying to make your intention as pure as possible, but sometimes you fail in the action, or your action, you don't know whether you got it right or wrong. So is there a certain way where you get more confidence in terms of knowing that your action has been executed properly? Even though you go through the whole steps of connecting things to the source of creation.
Do you make anything sure in this world?
No.
No. So there is no way to make sure that what you are doing is right or wrong, but as much as you can and as much as I can. So there is only a way, there is only an window or way to make progress. So there is no end for it anyways.
Another point, maybe as from the presentation that you cited, Yusuf and Abdurrahman, and we are not left alone. That's obvious. Like, that's the whole point of the guidance. Like, when you do something wrong, if it is wrong, like by definition, that you have this feeling of the wrongness. So you are not left alone in that sense. Like, yes, like as brother Ali said, trying to be, you know, confident or sure, I guess implies an end in your journey. But the journey is an ongoing journey. But again, on this journey, you are not left alone as well. And this reminds me of a verse in which the God says, you know, do they think we will left them alone? Or another verse which I like most, that their sins will surround them. So this gives me a kind of confidence, saying that, you know, if I do something, if I go astray, that means I will have something with me, you know, pointing me the right way, or telling me that what you are doing is not right.
And this is practically how we feel, right? I mean, it's not that it is going to happen, it happens.
Yes, it happens, exactly.
So I have a general question about the guidance thing that you were saying. So does that make the pieces of Quran or whatever useless if I don't see a guidance in them? Like if I read and I say, okay, I don't communicate with this part. Or, okay, this piece here makes sense to me, maybe I can communicate with it. Does that just frankly means, without going around, it means this piece is not useful for me? Continue and filter to those pieces that I can see myself through.
I'm not sure about the others, but I'm really reluctant to answer the question, not because, you know, it's dangerous or something, because, you know, it requires a whole discussion about, you know, what we mean by Quran, how we approach the Quran. So
guidance, the point of guidance.
Yeah, but
you read a page, there are pieces.
So what we mean with the guidance, like for instance, like give me an example. I'm not trying to, you know, escape from the question. So I may, for instance, try to get a guidance about my, let's say, income.
Yeah.
Like I have low income, so how I'm going to get a higher income? Let the guidance from Quran.
Sure.
Or
how about that one exactly?
So is this a proper way to approach Quran? That's the question. So I guess. So yeah. So there's all these questions need to be studied.
Yeah, but when we put an ayah and we highlight one sentence of it, and we leave the rest, and we discuss that part of it, oh, great, makes a lot of sense to us, we can relate our daily life with it.
If it really makes a lot of sense.
It does, yeah,
okay.
if that part does. And then you go to the other part, and it speaks about some conversation between Ansar and Muhajirun.
But this is like kind of like, I don't want to be one-to-one conversation, but
Yeah,
it's kind of
me
like a
neither.
hypothetical. Like I'm just showing you something, and I'm giving you a meaning, and you agree or you say, okay, it makes sense. This is what we have in hand. Like this is what exists currently.
So I guess this is the problem. I'm
So,
the only
yeah.
one who has it.
No. No, what I'm trying to say, like we should study the rest of the verse
Yeah.
and see whether it makes sense or not. Like you're talking about a hypothetical situation.
No, this is not hypothetical. I can grab any mushaf right now and show you 60%.
Can I just give a simple analogy? So when an author writes a book,
Yeah.
he's trying to convey something. Me personally, if I'm reading one of those scholarly books, I can only, you know how the lingo is used, get some of it, right?
Yeah.
I'll definitely need to go seek an expert. Oh, I don't understand this part, right? So definitely, there's a message being conveyed, and everything is about me, right? Somebody wants to convey a message to me. So yes, you know, when I read, I understand some parts, but just because I'm not comprehending the other parts, so maybe at this stage, you know, I don't comprehend it. Definitely, I need to seek someone, you know, like I need a guide or somebody to help me interpret that. And I think that's just leave it to that way.
May I just add
Yeah.
one point? So in yesterday's discussion, we were talking about what Quran is. So the author that we were studying, before starting to talk about what, like the miraculousness of Quran or verses about Quran, he started with what is Quran, and gave us 3 pages of definition of what Quran is. So before starting to study the verses, I need to have a understanding of what am I reading, because based on that, I am going to interpret the messages out of the whatever I am studying. Because for example, if the same sentence was being spoken by Birkan, the very same sentence, my interpretation or my expectation from the same sentence would be very different relative to the same sentence being spoken by the one who is all-knowing, all-knowledgeable, or even in terms of purpose. If Birkan is saying this sentence, I might think that, well, this guy is just trying to show off, let's say. Not to offense, right? But let's say when it comes to my creator, my source of existence telling me something, then I would need to question, what is my expectation from my source of existence to speak this word? Do I expect him to show off, or do I expect it to be as a guidance for my life? So based on these definitions, the whole thing changes. So this is why, before even starting to talk about the scripture, I need to come up with who is speaking, why he is speaking. All these descriptions will make those the other 60% that you're mentioning, which is, I agree. I mean, if I look at it from a false definition, 80% or maybe 99% of the scripture might sound like it's fairy tales. Sure, granted. But I guess the problem would be in my description and definition of what am I listening to. Pretty much like also, why am I listening to? All these things needs to be taken into account. Based on that, I guess things are going to get resolved. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, literalism would be the issue then.
Yeah.
But
So
moderator,
I hate to disrupt the discussion, but maybe we can officially end the session, and then I know people might have to make wudu and whatnot before Asr prayer. I think there's a group discussion tonight, right, after Iftar?
Yes.
So in between breaks and maybe during that we can continue it. Again, I don't want to leave anyone's
I should
question.
just give us 5 more minutes. Not because he's my husband.
I mean, it depends. Is everyone okay?
Because
with like
sometimes
5 more
when-
minutes?
let's finish officially,
Okay.
not to be, you know,
All right.
rude others. Yeah.
All right, yeah, to be fair, we can